You're listening to the Artist First World Radio Network, artistfirst.com. Tony K in the studio. Thanks for joining us, everyone worldwide. All broadcasts available free on demand 24/7 from the website. Be sure to share our content with everyone you know on your social network sites and consult the artistfirst.com homepage regularly for updated guests, weekly shows, specials, basically just a whole lot of fun. Special thanks to David Barrett Cohen, author of Crawfish Royale, heard on artistfirst.com. Hope you're having a great time joining us, everyone worldwide. Questions or comments during the show, please don't send them to me. Send them to our guest this hour, the fascinating, highly creative, and I think award-winning kind of a Goodreads 4-star author, Bryan Esparza. Esparza. Look it up. Do a Google. Great guy. And author of 2 books now, Connections, That's Life, and Connections, Attitude. So Volume 1, Volume 2. He's doing a great job, and he's a lot of fun. So let's give a Artist First welcome to our guest. How you doing, Bryan?
I'm doing good, Tony. How are you?
Wow. Thanks for joining us up there in Redmond, Washington.
Yeah, just outside of Seattle.
Outside of Seattle. Well, okay. So you like Seattle.
Oh, yeah.
Because people say, where's Redmond? Oh, well,
yeah.
Everybody knows we're Seattle, so there's your point of reference, even if it's a 2-hour drive to get there.
Yeah, it's about a 2-hour drive, depending on how you drive.
Yeah, and you're an outsider anyway, Bryan, because aren't you from San Jose, California?
Yeah, I was born in San Jose in 1996, and then my dad actually got offered a job at Microsoft when around the time I was born, and I lived in Washington for a bit, and then relocated back to San Jose, and then in 2004 I permanently started living here in Redmond, and I've been here ever since.
Well, Bryan, you've grown up in geekdom, with the land of computers, technology, and you enjoy it. It's second nature, like driving an automobile.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I was a very big tech nerd growing up. Played a lot of video games. I was exposed to all of Microsoft and, kind of all of its little secrets in there.
Of course, back when Artist First Radio started, 1996, it was the modem and all of the noise and the landlines, or then finally high-speed cable. But come on, we've come a long way with our technology.
Oh yeah, totally.
And you're using it as an author, as everyone should be. If my Lord, hey, audience, guess what? Ding, ding, ding. You're listening to Artist First World Radio Network on your mobile device. Imagine that. Right there on your phone, which didn't exist. Now in your automobile, which you couldn't do before. All over, so many. As a matter of fact, Bryan, you're right there on YouTube.
Oh, yeah. Totally.
Right there. Totally, he says. Yeah, man, I'm on YouTube. Well, who knows? Hey, you can put this interview on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
I know. You could put it on websites, move it around, write press releases, reach millions of people. Did you hear the previous interview, Bryan?
I listened in.
Yeah, a little bit. But look, she came on Artist First in 2009, and Leanne Burke, at that time, and still does, associate a portion of the proceeds of her book sales to breast cancer. Breast cancer awareness, promotion, research, and so forth. Many authors are doing that causal, hey, I really want some of what I make toward this effort to go again, pay it forward to that special thing that I believe in.
Yeah. I mean, if I could choose right now, if I could choose a place to put my proceeds, I would actually choose to donate to the Susan G. Komen breast cancer research as well, mainly because my mother, in 2008, she was actually diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer, and she beat it, thankfully, after a year of radiation and chemo. So if I could, if there was any way for me to thank God or like anyone you want to believe in for, helping my mom get through that, it would be to donate some of my proceeds to Susan G. Komen.
Well, you've just made her proud, Bryan.
Yeah.
So, hey, that's a great tribute and reward. And, anytime we have a loved one near us that go through a trauma, cancer, or anything, it's like, hey, reality check,
Oh, yeah, it was a huge reality check. I remember I was actually the first one to know about it. I was sitting in the couch opposite of her when she got that phone call, and it was a huge shock to me.
Yeah, because you can see it, of course, all over your mother's face, and then you're old enough to understand the nature of cancer and the complexity and the involvement, how severe or limited it might be. Right? There's so many unknowns. I think that's the part of life. Life happens. There's a lot of unknowns. Things can trip you up. And did any of that play a role in your thoughts regarding Connection, your book?
Not necessarily. It's just something a little, all the stuff that my mom went through, I believe it's a little too personal to write about. But, I feel that, the feeling that my mom got, I can't imagine what she got, so overwhelming, and it's kind of like a shock in a way because we didn't expect it either. But that whole shock feeling you can get through Connection. If I were to compare it to my book, it would probably be the reaction.
Yeah. To set things up, audience, Bryan's books are for young adults, right? Bryan, the age group probably 21 and under, 21 or 15 to 21, you think?
Yeah, probably 15 to 21. And recently I've had a lot of parents tell me that they really love my writing.
Yeah, I mean, that's a compliment, because we want the audience, we want parents to say, hey, here's a book I could read, and therefore I could let my young adult read it, right? And that's fun. Bridge to conversation. How do you think? How do you feel? What do you like? What don't you like? Or,
Yeah.
And, I like that interaction between adults and their children. And we're out there looking, we're struggling. How can I connect to my teenager?
Yeah, I mean, that was kind of like my whole point of writing, Attitude in the first place. Is when I wrote Attitude when I was 16 years old. It was on and off throughout school, and it was kind of on my own. And, I wasn't a really big reader in high school, but a friend of mine actually came to me and he told me like, hey, I need you to read this book for me because growing up here in Redmond, like nothing sugar coated. There are some drugs, there are some alcohol going around at young ages, and it's everywhere around here. And so, odds are, you talk to a kid on the street, probably 17, 18. But yeah, he's done a little smoking, done a little drinking, but he knows what it's like, basically. You know what I'm saying? Like, he knows what it's like, and so my friend came to me and he's like, I want you to read this book, and the book was Go Ask Alice. Have you ever heard of that book?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Go Ask Alice. I read a couple pages of it, and I researched the author, Beatrice Sparks, and I was reading about her stuff, and she's telling, her whole message was like, oh, these are all real diaries.
Yeah, she's tripping.
Yeah, and so like when I was reading the book, I'm like, there's no way that these are real, because I know people who have done these things, and like they're not, going off to Chicago getting robbed. They're not going off to, like they're not going off doing LSD everywhere. You know, they're calm, they're happy people. And so for someone like Beatrice to publish a book like that and say like, oh, this is nonfiction, this is whatever, I know what this is like, you know, that doesn't make sense to me. And then it all of a sudden just hit me, you know, like Beatrice she was, I believe, probably in her 40s or 50s at the time. When you're 40, 50 years old, I'd like to imagine, you know, you have a wife and kids and, you know, you have a settled down life, you have your own job, stuff like that. And for you, as at that age, with that mindset, to write about a teenager, you know, like going through high school, trying these new things, these new experiences, sure, you can remember what they're like, you know, like I can easily say like, oh, I remember what I was like, what it was like when I was 12 years old, playing video games, doing all that stuff. I don't know what my mindset was. And that's the main key, is that if you can't capture the mindset of a teenager, you know, the only way you can capture it is if you're a teenager yourself. And so,
well, yeah, and if you're writing it or chronicling various events and so forth that would fit into categories of emotion and reflection.
Oh, of course. And then, like, I remember when I started reading that book, and I just kind of gave up on it because I'm like, I can't take this. This isn't real. And so I thought about my past. You know, like, I read that book when I was beginning of junior year. And so all throughout my sophomore year, you know, I had my fair share of experiences. I went to parties. I tried drinking. I tried all these other things. And I thought, you know, like, I need to, you know, I know what it's like, you know. And on top of that, I'm 16. I have the mindset of a teenager. I know exactly what I'm doing. So why don't I write a book exposing to parents, exposing to, you know, teenagers that, hey, doing LSD, doing insert your drug here, it could screw you up or it could, like, do something to you in the future. But in reality, 9 times out of 10, here's what it is, you know?
Well, today, of course, the reality is meth, heroin, other synthetic drugs that are rampant throughout our high schools. Marijuana has, you know, has always been there, but it's growing in popularity in high school. Mind-altering drugs, in other words. You know, where's the age of saying, "Hey, you're a kid"? You know, it's not appropriate for you. You know, it's like those barriers. Parents want to be their friends with their children.
Oh, yeah.
And it's a different mindset today for many people that don't have moral guidance, that don't have maybe the intellect to grasp what's going on.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, it can hit basically anyone. Like, looking down the street, you know, I'm sure it's not just here in Redmond, but, you know, when you look at your stereotypical, you know, like, kid in jean shorts, you know, a torn-up shirt, you know, like, smoking a cigarette, you can automatically think, like, oh, he's probably done a number of drugs. Like, he may have done heroin, or, like, you know, if you really want to get stereotypical, like, oh, he does meth, or, like, oh, he does a really hard drug. When in reality, you know, you go up and talk to him, like, he's a really nice guy, you know, might smoke an occasional joint here and there, but he's not, you know, like who you think he is. And the biggest shock to me was I remember I had a friend. He came from a very wealthy family, lived in a gated community, and he was a heroin addict. And so I would think, and I would believe, like, oh, he's probably got very good guidance from his parents. His parents are very responsible, keep an eye on their child. But then, like, I remember going to his house and thinking, like, wow, like, it was a huge reality shock to me.
Yeah, and you're right. You know, you're living the moment and you're chronicling the moment, and that makes your material real and relevant to high school, young adults, parents that are going through wondering what's in their kids' heads, trying to figure it out. What about the computer, the cell phone, texting, and all that? Boy, there's a lot of time involved.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff going on, like, it really. It's more of like a connection to what you want. Like, I can imagine, like, in the 90s. If I grew up in the 90s and all I had was, like, you know, my mom's telephone or, like, the house phone, you know, you can't really get a connection through what you want today. You know, you can't call a random number and say, hey, do you have, like, this drug or that drug? Because, like, you know, your parents can easily pick up on the other line and be like, oh, I know what my son's up to. Whereas if today, that's one of the many bad things I find about today is that so much easier. And don't get me wrong, it's so much easier to do everything else with cell phones, computers, and all that. Like, I can easily log on to Facebook and ask someone, like, hey, do you know where to get this drug and that drug? And I won't have to worry about it because that's just between me and him. There's no one else involved.
Well, I can't understand the language. You know, that's the problem. Parents, grandparents, old people like me, you kids start rambling on. You could be talking about shooting up in the next room, and I wouldn't know it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, it's the lingo going around today, and some of the lingo has stuck around since, like, before I was born, like, just saying, like, hey, do you have a dime? You know, I remember 5 years old, 5, 6 years old, super young like that. I'm like, yeah, I have a dime. It's in my pocket. Like, it's a little, like, piece of change. But then as you get older, it's like, oh, he's talking about pot. Like, oh, like a dime of pot. That's like $10 worth. That's why it's called a dime. It's the lingo that you learn about. It's like, even for someone like your age, it's easy to pick up on, but it takes a little while. And, you know, eventually, once you start to catch up onto it, whether it's too late or not, it may have gotten to your kid already.
I know in the old days, you know, the parent would just, dad would be driving down the road, 5 kids in the back seat, and my mom would be trying to talk to him, and we would be making all kinds of noise, and my dad would look in the rearview mirror and say, you guys better just shut up, I'm trying to hear your mom, and we wouldn't listen. And then the next thing you know, this arm would magically appear in the back seat, and it would just start slapping 5 kids across the face until we would shut up. Okay? Well, yeah. You know, today, the man would be woo, 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 and you'd be pulling over, and mom and daddy would be handcuffed and going to jail.
Yeah, I mean, like, personally, I didn't grow up, you know, with the belt as it's quote-unquote, like, you know, when you grow up, you know, I got whipped with the belt, you know, when I didn't listen. I actually just grew up, you know, getting yelled at, you know, like, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And I appreciate that, you know. I'm glad that I don't have, like, quote-unquote trauma from, like, the times I didn't listen. But personally, I think that's what has brought in a lot of, you know, users and rebellious kind of kids of today is because, you know, when you get hit, you know, like, let's say, like, I broke a vase or something. You know, I get hit, and I will remember, like, I can't break that vase again because I'm going to get hurt. Whereas, like, if I break a vase today and I'm, like, 15 years old, I'm going to get yelled at. And I'm going to stand there and be like, oh, this doesn't hurt. I'm going to do it again. I'm going to be a rebel, you know, because it's not like I'm going to get hurt by it.
Well, we learned, you know, if dad and mom were trying to talk, you know, shut up, right? Yeah. We all loved each other and loved him and her, of course. We had a great family. I'm just saying that generationally, things change, and it's difficult to keep up sometimes with the culture and the influence that young people have in their high schools today that look like massive universities.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different world. How many are in your graduating class?
Oh, wow. That's probably a couple hundred, maybe. I want to say maybe 200 kids.
Yeah, so per class, you probably have a principal for every grade.
Yeah.
And so that's a big complex.
Oh, yeah. I believe Redmond High was a 4A school.
Well, how do you end up writing about what's happening and your reflections without getting your head bashed into the concrete on a regular?
I kind of actually kept it, you know, like on the down low. Like, I wasn't really, like, vocal about it, but, you know, I would write in class, I would do whatever, and I would get the occasional, like, oh, what's that? You know, like, oh, I'm just something I'm writing in my spare time. And then when I finished the book, it just kind of sat there for a little bit. And then my friend, you're going to come to know him in the book as Derek. I went over to Derek's house one day, and he asked me, like, you know, it was our junior year, and he's telling me, like, hey, man, so I'm not going to be here for, like, senior year. I'm going to do running start at BC. I just want to make sure you're okay, because we were really close friends. And, you know, he's like, what are you going to do with your life? You know, basically, like, checking up on me, making sure that I was on the right path. And then I thought, you know, Derek would be the perfect first person to expose this to, because, like, you know, I know he's not going to bash my head into the wall. He's not going to think of me differently, because he's always seen me as, like, different. Like, if I told him, like, yeah, I'm I'm going to go write a book. He's like, oh, yeah, of course you're going to go write a book. Because I wasn't necessarily like him in some ways. And so when I exposed the book to him, that's how it kind of grew. Like, he read the book. He was the first person to ever read it. And, like, he gave me some feedback, told me it was very good. And that kind of, like, spread, you know. People will always ask me, like, so you're writing a book. That's pretty cool. And, of course, the number one question that I always get is, am I in the book? And, of course, you know, when you tell them yes, you know, they're all really excited, really excited. And when you tell them no, that's when they start to get a little aggravated. But that's kind of how it started. It slowly went from just one person to all of a sudden the whole school knows. And then by the time I was published, you know, like, it was still a secret to some people. So, like, really, if you want to lay low, just keep your mouth shut while you're during the process. And then once it's exposed, you got nothing to worry about.
It'd be a little rough to include maybe 200 names in your first book.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, everyone in your whole class. Well, what about your teachers, too, and administration and parents? And, oh, my, it could be massive.
Yeah,
well, I thought it would be a great idea just to keep it totally secret, not let anyone know. And then at your 20th or 25th high school reunion, then spring it on them, see, because they will have been married and divorced and married to someone else, and someone else's best friend will have married someone else, and so on and so forth, and they'll all be mixed up with other people's kids.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Then you bring it out the book, see?
Yeah. But, you know, like, I'm a very patient person, but even I have to say that that's, like, a little too much for me. I mean, I remember towards the end of my senior year, we had an assembly. And, like, some of the leadership members came out with this box. And, like, they started talking to us, and they're like, so during the next 3 lunches, you know, you should, you know, if you have anything to put in our time capsule, that's what they called it. And they're like, yeah, we're going to make a time capsule. So if you have anything to drop in here, we're going to open it up at our 10-year high school reunion. And I thought, why don't I drop my book in there? But at the same time, I'm like, oh, yeah, everyone already knows about it. I still dropped it in there. Don't get me wrong. But, like, that's when that whole thing kind of hit me. Like, what if I just released it in the future? But what kind of, like, hit me was during my publishing process through CreateSpace, I sent my interior in, and I'm waiting for the approval, and then my parents actually came to me, and they're like, we need people to know about this, like the guys you wrote about, because it is fiction, don't get me wrong, and the reason I wrote it as fiction is because I did have to tweak a few things so that the story would flow a lot better, and it's re-edited. However, I had to notify people about it, because even though they can't sue me, you know, to the locals around Redmond, it's easy for them to, like, figure out who's who, like, oh, Derek is so-and-so, or oh, Jason is like this guy. So I was kind of forced to expose it and all that other weird stuff. But, you know.
Maybe it's a good thing I spelled your last name wrong and stumbled as I opened the show. You know, you never know. I could be protecting you, see?
Yeah, thanks a lot, man.
You're welcome. And it's Esparza, Esparza. We have it spelled incorrectly on our homepage, so, well, yeah. Hey, I don't type it, okay? I just read it. And imagine, Bryan, a decade from now, if I stumbled across this interview, I'd have to be totally humiliated at what I've done.
Yeah.
Right? So who cares? I don't care. We're having a good time.
We all have something that kind of, like, stumps us. Like, I'll never forget, you know, like, the minute I got my shipment of books in, like, when Attitude first got published, my dad gave me $300, and he said, I want you to order some copies, and, like, you know, like, do whatever you want with them. So.
Does he want another son?
I would hope not. I mean,
oh, jeez. Okay.
He's old, you know, he's kind of past his prime. And I think he's, yeah.
Oh, that's a good one. He must be over 40.
Yeah. He's actually celebrating his 50th.
That's when I had my crisis, was 40. Okay, well, he's celebrating 50. A lot of guys have one then, okay? But believe me, it's all downhill after that. All downhill.
I can't wait.
Okay, anyway, it is what we make of it. And reading is fun. Giving back is fun. Meeting people like you, Bryan, is a lot of fun. I'm glad you're enjoying your authorship. What do you want to do with all this? Are you going to end up a stand-up comic, or are you going to write for movies, or you don't really care or know yet?
I'm one that kind of like lives in the moment in a way. Like, I'm not really a big planner. Like, to be honest, like, when it comes to school, I wasn't a big fan of school, as you will come to find out in my readings. But, like, I kind of live in the moment. Like right now, you probably won't believe me, but I'm actually doing this interview in my car. Because I just kind of go with it. Like, I was going to do this at my house, but then all of a sudden I ran into some things. I'm like, screw it, I'm going to do it in the car. But
Hey, when I was in high school, we did a lot of things in the car, okay? So, talking on the phone worldwide to a network with 4 million listeners each month from your automobile is just way cool. We've had famous actors and famous artists in their big buses, and they're going across and it's the Allman Brothers, So we've been doing this since 1996. And just blowing them away, and it's a lot of fun, Bryan. Thanks for joining our ranks. We hope you enjoy this show and you have a home for it other than the round fowl.
Yeah.
And you can get it out there and enjoy it and have some fun. What are we missing? I think I should be humiliating some other people in your life.
Let's see. What are we missing?
The books, they're available. We forgot to tell people you can actually buy this stuff.
Oh, yeah, of course. Or we could just keep rambling,
Yeah, let's see. Didn't we say, where can they go? Amazon.com.
Yeah, Amazon.com. If you just search my name specifically, Bryan Esparza, you're going to have a much easier time, because I remember when I first published Attitude, I just searched Attitude in the books department, and there are thousands.
Wow.
And I'm like, how am I going to find this? And I just typed in my own name. So,
okay.
Yeah. If you just type in my name, Bryan Esparza, BryanEsparza, you'll just find 3 things, actually. You'll find my first book, Attitude, my second book, Connection, and some other type of movie. Like, there's some movie that keeps popping up. But, yeah, you'll have a much easier time than searching through like thousands of pages trying to find it. And
the YouTube, the Google will bring that up. I think that's fun. You must have enjoyed having that made, or you made it yourself, right? I mean,
yeah.
Or did you actually pay someone?
Oh no.
Okay.
Everything I've done is all on my own. I did have an idea of paying someone. When the first little promotional thing I ever did was, there's a local coffee shop in my neighborhood called Soul Food Books. They offered me a book release for the first time, and they were very nice about it. They hooked me up with a lot of things, and the first promoter and probably last promoter I will ever hire was you're going to get to know him as Craig in the second book. He basically sold himself to me. He's like, I'm going to take a bunch of time to, expose your book. A lot of people are going to show up to this thing, and, you're going to have a good time. And so when I went off and, let him do his thing, to be honest, he probably did enough work as what I was paying him to do. I was giving him 10% of every sale, meaning that I would give him probably like $1 or $2 per sale. And so the book releases in a month, and, I'm sitting there, letting him do his thing. And then some book release, I check my sales, and I'm like, I've sold 2 copies, and he had like a month to do everything. And when I talked to him about it, giving me like weird BS excuse of like, oh, I was off doing something, bad, but whatever. But he was very apologetic about it. But that just kind of taught me, like, if you really want something to get done, you have to do it yourself.
Well, there's no doubt, as an author, it engages all of the entrepreneurial enterprises. You're wearing many hats all at the same time when you really would just like to be down pounding out the words, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But unfortunately, once you do and you have something, everything else has to work. I like the book covers, the artwork there, very attractive package, priced reasonably, available 24/7 at Amazon.com. Follow the links provided at artistfirst.com to get there for Bryan's books. Look, you're getting the package, you're getting your branding, I should say, your persona, who you are, what you want the world to perceive you as out there. But you haven't created your own website yet.
You know, like, I'm still kind of, you know, they are my first two books, and I've only been in the indie scene, as I like to call it. I've only been around for about 2 years. So I'm still kind of learning the ropes. And, you know, in terms of making websites and all that, you have to put into account my own personal life. Like, I have a job to take care of. My parents are actually charging me rent, so that leaves, like, a big dent in my whole, like, oh, I need to put this aside for a second. But as I'm sort of like staying in the groove of things, I'm like, yeah, I need to, why don't I actually give this a go and like try and promote this thing? And so, you know, I have given a website a thought, but you know, for now I'm just
Facebook? Are you in Facebook? Twitter? Are you in Twitter?
I'm actually on Twitter.
Okay. Do you have a blog?
No blog.
Okay, then just go create a blog, and there's your website. And then on the blog, you could put all kinds of information, you know, that you can capture for your book cover, the links, the Artist First interview you did with Way Cool, Tony K, and there you go. You're building a site. You could do Wix, Wix.com. Aren't they free? I think you just go there and just throw a little bit, create your persona. You could use an AKA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you could just change your name, you know, and you know, Bryan Ball, whatever, you know, Bashers, whatever you want, right? You could just create your own, and depending on where you're headed with this.
Oh yeah,
I don't know where you're headed. You know, if you're gonna, I want to be an editor for the New York Times. Well, I don't know. You might want to be cautious about what you print.
Yeah, I mean, like I can only hope. I can only hope to get a job like that, but
no selfies, you know, no nude pictures. Come on, you know, you gotta have a long vision about what might be stored on the computer.
Yeah,
I'm just shocked. It's appalling. I think the invasion of privacy is just epic.
Oh yeah, I mean, like, invasion of privacy, that was probably one of the biggest challenges I had to face. Is that
I'm Tony K. Do you think I'm going to tell you my real name?
Oh, of course not.
Come on. You know, I can't do that. I got too many, and I'm good looking, too. So you think I'm going to put my picture out there? Oh, my God. My wife would go nuts.
Yeah.
You know, so Mr. Tall, Dark, and Handsome, you know, you just have to be. Today, you can't, so you can, though, use the internet, create a website, create a persona, give yourself an AKA. You know, you can promote your books, the things that your projects, the things that you're working on, and have that central location to dialogue with with an audience.
Yeah, I mean, like, you know, privacy has never really been a big issue to me, as it has been to actually some of the characters in my book, and that is probably one of the biggest challenges I faced when publishing both Attitude and Connection, mainly because, as I said, you know, people, when I tried to publish it without anyone knowing, you know, my parents came out and said, like, hey, you need people to know about this because, you know, people can point blank say, like, oh, I know who this is, I know who that is. And so when they started, when I started asking people for consent, they're just like, yeah, so go ahead and do it, like, because like, you know, you have to remember that I was 16, 17 years old at the time. So I'm going around asking all these teenagers, like, hey, I wrote this book. And of course, you know, in the teenage perspective, you know, what teenager writes a book and goes off and publishes a book? That is exactly what they were thinking. So they were telling me, like, yeah, man, you can use my likeliness, change my name, do whatever you want. But, you know, like, good luck, have fun. And so I went off and published the books, and then all of a sudden, a lot of people, a lot of them just came back to me. They lashed out at me. They were like, whoa, 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 what are you doing? Like, you're not supposed to, you can't do that. And then, and I knew that was going to happen, actually. So while I'm sitting here, publishing the book, and all of a sudden the book comes out, I get all these emails and all these Facebook messages of what are you doing? You published a book. I'm like, yeah, I did. And you're in it. We talked about it. Here's the screenshot of what you said to me. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind. They're like, well, screw you, man. I didn't want that to happen. I'm like, well, it did.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. When you're working in reality, maybe people don't want to be remembered as the boy whose pants fell down or the girl who tripped and scraped her leg, whatever. That's it. But the fact remains that authors do it all the time.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm sure there have been some authors who have, bent the quote unquote law and said yeah, he told me it was okay to write about him screwing around with girls and cheating on his girlfriend and all that, but of course, when that person finds out, they're going to come back to that author and say why would you do that to me? What? Just why? One of the most infamous stories that I've gotten so far was, I think 1 in the morning, and Attitude had been out for about a week. It had been out for about a week, and then I got a message from one of the characters who I hadn't seen in a while. She was, she was really nice to me, and she asked me hey, I want to know what you wrote about, because I really want to read the book, but I want to make sure it's not too personal. And, I told her who her character was. I had already asked for her consent before I published it. And the only thing was, I kind of knew that this was going to happen. So when I asked for her consent, about a month before, I'm like, do you want to read who your character is? Do you want to see what you're going to be looked at as? And she's like, no, go ahead. Do whatever you want. And so I'm like, okay. So I do whatever I want, and then here we are now. We're just having this conversation. And I told her about her character, what I said about her, what her character was doing, and then she just lost it. She was typing in all caps, I can imagine her just screaming at me, why would you do that to me? Why would you expose that side of me? I'm like, well, because you said it was okay. And she's like, no, I didn't. And so I sent her the screenshots of, what we talked about a month before, and she's like, well, it's still kind of screwed up that you did that. I'm like, well, I think it's screwed up that you're taking back your word. I went out of my way to say, hey, this is pretty personal, so I'm going to, make sure it's okay with you. You say it's okay, and then all of a sudden you're going to take it back. And the book is fiction, as I said, because I had to tweak a few things. So even if I got slapped with a lawsuit for similarity in character, it's a fictional world. They can't really do that. And so she straight up told me, I'm going to sue you. Do you know I can sue you for this? I'm like, yes, I do, and did you know that you actually can't do that? And we had a long conversation, just a long conversation of a bunch of arguing, and I'm just sitting there what did I do wrong? I took the necessary steps, but, it just showed me that, you should really pay attention. It's kind of like signing a contract. If you sign a contract without reading it, something's going to screw you over in the future.
Yeah, and today in digital society, we take liberties in capturing content. For instance, we may be filming or see a length of film on an event that happens, it's recorded, and then take editorial privilege in removing the context.
Oh, yeah.
Just by capturing this scene and that scene and merging them together as if they happened repetitively, when in reality there was a great space of time and many other things occurred in between.
Yeah.
So the same is true when writing. You may have a springboard. This individual, this person may represent a character, but then you're embellishing and taking it from there, so to speak, which would be out of character for their normal life.
Yeah, of course.
And that's what makes it fun.
Oh yeah.
You know, it's fast paced. You get through it.
Yeah. Present day, that whole argument was about a year ago, and me and her still haven't talked to each other. And if
Well, I'm
I
sorry.
just want to say that if she actually is listening right now, I want to say that I'm sorry, and I'm sorry that I kind of quote unquote screwed you over like that. But if you ever want to talk about it, if you want to talk things through, I'd be happy to do that with you. But just remember that, whether I was in the wrong, whether you were in the wrong, I apologize for whatever, I screwed up for.
Well, Bryan, that's a learning curve, right? We're all going to make learn as we go. It's and how big of a deal is it really? Come on.
Yeah.
What about Kindle Mojo? I mean, that's a pretty affordable way to get the books.
Oh yeah, Kindle. That was actually a huge surprise to me because when I first got on CreateSpace, I actually was going to go with a different kind of publishing process, but then they offered me the Kindle actually, and they told me, and I'm looking at their prices, because CreateSpace is a sister company of Amazon, and so I'm like, okay, cool, I can trust them. They're going to be selling my stuff. But they also offer the extra stuff, like we can edit your book for $300, or we can design your cover for $500, and all these big prices. And then I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna publish the book and get it out of there. But then I look at the Kindle, and then I'm like, oh, it costs $25. I'll do the Kindle, and then I had never bought a Kindle before actually, and so when I did the test and I bought a Kindle, I'm like, wow, it's right there. And then I looked at my prices, and I'm like, wow, why did I price it this high? And, if you as a customer are going to buy a Kindle and it's a little too high, I apologize, but it actually is a very great way to get the book. And, Kindle.
Hey, Bryan, I got a solution for all your problems, buddy. It's like this. Hey, Dad, I'm paying rent, okay? So look, I'm gonna make it easy because I know I'd probably take a shower too. All right, but look, Dad, everybody here hates me because I wrote about the high school. It's reality. This is the reality, and I embellished and I said some things, and they all hate me now. But Dad, I got an answer. Oh yeah, what, son? I'm gonna move to Maine. What do you mean? Yeah, well. Stephen King, it worked for him.
Yeah.
So if I go over there and I write some really fat books and people buy them and maybe make a movie or two, then all of a sudden, all these people over here at the high school, they're going to love me.
Oh, yeah. But
right really now, they don't like me.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way it goes.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was back in the 70s, wasn't it? He did have to go up to Maine. But, if I did that today, I also have to be on Stephen King's level as well. And on top of that, I don't write, horror stories. There's no way I can write something like The Shining.
Why not?
Well,
you don't like the genre. You like... okay.
Don't get me wrong. I love his books. I love reading his stuff. I think Carrie is still one of my favorite books of all time. But, to write in that genre, I always had thoughts about it, but I never had a true idea for it. And so for me to just, and I'm a young adult fiction writer. For me to make that transition, it's a little much for me.
Well, I like John Carpenter. Yeah, because he writes the music too.
Oh yeah. Cool.
John Carpenter writes the scripts, the movies, and the music, everything, okay?
Yeah.
I like him. He's really cool. But no, Connection, that's life, great for students that have gone back to school. Everybody went back, I think, right? Why not give your child something else to read?
Yeah, it'll give him an inside look at, what it was like to go throughout high school. If you want the high school perspective, I would actually go with Attitude first, and then if you want more of kind of the behind the scenes kind of look, because Connection, it follows the story of Jason Espinosa, the protagonist, as he gets out of high school. And my whole theory, where I got the idea for Connection was, when I first published the book, when I first published Attitude, I got a lot of people telling me, like, man, publishing a book isn't that big of a deal. I'm like, it kind of is, because, did you actually sit down and, spend hours looking for the right publisher, hours looking for an editor, stuff like that? And so, like, I got that from a lot of people. That actually started to, tick me off. And then I'm like, and then I jotted down all the things I had to do, like, put it on my wall, and I'm like, wait, I did a lot of things. I had to go through a lot of underlining things to get this done. And so Connection tells the story of Jason trying to publish his own book. It's kind of like in the kind of bending reality in a way, and that's the first storyline. But the second storyline that I know everyone can relate to is Jason actually discovers his first love, his first girlfriend, and all the stuff that he had to go through, like, do I like this girl? Do I not? Like, I don't know what flirting
And she's
is.
the one who hates you because you wrote about her in the other book. I know.
Yeah. But yeah, like, all the stuff I read about, it is all true to an extent. I want to say, I hear this a lot from a lot of fiction writers, 99% of my writing is true, and then that 1% is like the little tweaks I had to put in here and there.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like writing any kind of superhero, right? I mean, they have the real identity, and then suddenly they become something else.
Oh, yeah.
And characters have a way of doing that at a moment's notice.
Yeah.
Well, Bryan, congratulations on putting together these books, your tenacity, your creativity, being willing to put your neck out there and have it chopped off regularly. I think that's highly commendable. And then all of the entrepreneurial enterprises involved in putting the project together. Congratulations. We wish you much, much success. Come back anytime you'd like. Thank you for supporting the arts, for being our guest on Authors First. And before I let you go, get out of here, anyone out there on planet Earth you'd like to say hello to or closing remarks?
Oh, of course. I also just wanted to say thank you guys so much for the opportunity here on Authors First and Artists First Radio. But I know there's a few people out there who are listening here, and I just wanted to say hi to my girlfriend, Olivia, who's sitting at home sick right now, and I just want to say that I love you. I want to say hi to my parents. Thank you so much for always being there for me, and I know that you guys are going through some troubles, but, thanks for always, believing in me and, helping me pursue and what I believe in. And I also want to give a shout-out to my friend Shyla Solomon, who was actually here with me at Soul Food Books, she was pumping me up throughout the day, trying to make sure that I was ready for this, and I just wanted to say thank you to her.
Hey, Bryan, let's go out with the song Attitude by Ray McDonald, all right?
Of course.
Let's check this out. Thanks for being on board, buddy.
Thank you.
Boy, I must have really embarrassed Bryan talking about that other girl when his girlfriend was listening and everything. Tony K, what can you say? It happens. It's real radio. It's raw, live, Somebody has to be on Facebook. Bryan won't get out there. So if you actually like him, don't be afraid to say some kind words, boost the guy's ego, pat him on the back. It's rough being an author. And he survived his first radio interview worldwide right here with Tony K. We had a great time together. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. Be sure to check him out on YouTube. It's a hoot. I want him to do another one. He could wear a funny hat, do a little dance. It would be all right. Have a good time, Bryan. Thanks for joining us.